At the time of this recording, I think I've done 40 interviews and episodes for the show. I know right now, this is only like episode 14 or 15, wherever it lands, but I've interviewed a lot, about 3 or 4 dozen coaches, maybe 3 dozen coaches over the past couple of months here. And I've done a lot of original material that I've recorded as well. So we're going to start boosting these up and actually putting out probably 2 or 3 shows. I guess we're doing 2 or 3 shows a week. I think we're going to start going to 3 to 4, maybe 5 shows a week, depending on what happens, just because there's so much content that's coming in. And I don't want to record something and then have it just sitting around and waiting. That wasn't really the plan. So anyway, I'm telling you all that to tell you that I've done a lot of shows. I've talked to a lot of people. I have had many discussions before the podcast ever started with a lot of different coaches. And I have made some really amazing friendships and I have met some incredible people. But every once in a while, I talk to somebody, and when I get off the phone with them or I stop the conversation at that point, I feel like there's a connection that happened. I feel like there's such a strong connection. And I have to tell you that this next guest that's coming on today, Eleanore Strong, when I got off the conversation with her, it was amazing. I felt like I had just talked to somebody that I'd known my whole life. She's an incredible woman. She's very wise, and she does things a lot like I do. She's very passionate about getting coaches out of their own way so they can start making 5 figures a month. They can start making the 6 figures a year. They can start serving people, doing what they're passionate about. And she has incredible methods and systems that I love. I think she's phenomenal. And the other thing about her is that she is so much calmer than I am. It's just incredible. So she kind of soothes me out a little bit. So in our conversations before the podcast and actually anything we've ever talked to afterwards, I get off the phone with her and I feel like, man, like I'm excited, I'm revitalized, rejuvenated, and I'm ready to go. I'm just ready to go and serve the world. And I hope that you get that same kind of feeling from her today. There is a ton of content that she's going to drop, and you need to be paying attention. The intro is up first, and then we're going to go right into the interview.
As I build my coaching business, I want to know how to effectively serve clients and make more money doing it. This podcast will pull back the curtain to reveal exactly how successful coaches are building their empires. Join me as I engage with top coaches from all over the world to discover their secrets. No theatrics and no theory, just real life strategy. My name is William Winterton, and this is Coaching Success Radio.
Well, hello, welcome to the podcast. It's William, and I am really super excited today. I have an amazing coach. Miss Eleanore Strong is a business coach from Chicago, and I want to introduce her now and bring her into the podcast. Eleanore, are you there?
Yes.
Hi, how you doing?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
I'm excited. I don't want to spoil anything, but I feel like there's so much value that you have shared already online, and I would love to just kind of open the door to you and let you give a little bit of a background and introduction of yourself, and tell us about who Eleanore Strong is.
Okay, that's certainly a wide open question. Well, who I am, obviously we're all such multifaceted beings, but who I am in the coaching industry is someone I never really set out to be. You know, it's all just, I feel that it's all unfolded in a way I never could have predicted. And I really just started out about 6 years ago wanting to create some kind of business where I could, add value to the world. And I really had no idea what that was going to be. And I found myself in an entrepreneurship program, a couple different ones actually, where there were a lot of folks who were in the coaching industry, and I had never heard of it or didn't know what it was about or anything. And they were all just really fascinating people, I thought, and doing really, really important work in the world. And I kind of just naively assumed that they were all doing really well in their businesses.
Right.
And I thought, if you're amazing at what you do, and why wouldn't you be doing well? And then we had this group where a lot of people confided their struggles, and almost everybody was struggling. I found they were like, well, I find it really hard to attract clients, or people don't see the value in what I'm doing. And I was like, what? How can that be? And after they shared that, then I kind of went on a journey of trying to discover and learn more, checking out their websites, got into personal conversations with some of them, and really quickly dawned on me that there was a huge need where I could add value, that coaches just struggle to communicate the value of what they do in a way that gets clients interested and seeing the value and wanting to sign up now and all those
Right.
great things that we all strive for as entrepreneurs. And so that was the beginning for me. I never set out to be a coach myself, but it was an area where I felt called to step in, because communication has been a huge gift and blessing in my life. So, it's 6 years later now, and I'm like fully immersed and loving the whole thing. So that's a little bit of background.
Well, that's awesome. So whenever you are talking about, yeah, and clearly it's difficult when you're first getting started in the coaching world. And 6 years ago, it wasn't as wide open as it is now. It was not as well known. I don't think coaching was not as big of a presence as it is now. It seems like it just keeps growing exponentially year after year, more and more coaches coming along. So,
Yeah.
so as you were getting started, what were some of the hurdles? You already mentioned sharing, trying to get people to understand the value that you bring in hiring you. What are some of the other things that you had to kind of, in building this coaching business, what are some of the things you had to overcome?
Well, it's so funny because I really find we're all most drawn um, to help with the thing that we have most struggled with ourselves. So it was
Mm,
really funny, like even at the same time as I was helping coaches with their messaging, like that was how I started out, was focusing specifically on the messaging piece with people, because that was what I knew, that was my gift. Um, and so, now it's expanded so much and I'm helping people with so many aspects of client attraction. But you know it's funny because just talking about messaging and having that as a skill set is not a super compelling outcome to talk about. It's really like more of a skill set than an outcome. So in a way, I kind of suffered from the same thing that my future clients were suffering from, in
right.
that I didn't have a clear compelling outcome to offer as a coach. I wasn't even a coach. I never set out to do that. I just had this skill set. So my struggle was always, what's how do I communicate what I do in a compelling way that can command a high price and that, gets an easy yes from potential clients? That was the hugest hurdle for me. And it was the thing I always wanted to help others with as well. So kind of funny.
Yeah, and that's actually really good because a lot of our audience is it's built up of people who are kind of in that same spot, where uh, they've got their business or they've got or maybe they're just starting their coaching business, or maybe they've been going for a little while, but they're struggling to really explain clearly what the value is in what they offer enough to
Yep.
get the price point that they need to really make a living on this. So can you expand a little bit how you kind of, like, what was some of the steps, what were some of the things you did to kind of solve that? I know that's a major issue. So what steps have you taken? And I'm just kind of leading you to this direction here a little bit, but.
Yeah. Well, so the way it happened for me is not necessarily the way I would recommend that others approach it,
Okay.
because for me, it's so funny. So for me, the journey of the past 6 years has actually been about developing expertise in other areas besides messaging. It's like, for me, I always wanted to get to the point where I could offer tremendous value to coaches, where I could say, hey, if you work with me, you'll make $10,000 or $20,000 a month. Like, I always wanted to be able to offer that as an outcome, because that's the point where I found most coaches never get to, is making five or multiple five figures a month. And that really represents like a holy grail of achievement for a lot of people.
Right.
Because most people never get to those levels of income in, a quote unquote real job. And so entrepreneurship affords them that chance, but most people don't know how to get there. So in getting to that level myself of 10 to 20,000 a month, I was able to figure out all the pieces, right? What is really needed to get to those levels? And for me, it was a journey of learning that. In addition to having the messaging gift, I also had to learn how does a great sales process look? How does a great process look for inviting people to that sales experience with you? How does that work? How does lead generation work? How do you get in front of enough people to enroll enough clients to hit your goals? All those pieces I had to learn through a lot of different experiences, through taking different courses, through trial and error, um, all these kinds of things. And so that was my journey of eventually being able to offer an amazing outcome. Now, I don't think that a lot of people actually need to go through a 6-year journey of developing expertise. That can be true in some cases. Like some people may take coach training or whatever, and so they're really skilled in the modality or the method, and then they really don't have expertise on other pieces that create a particular outcome for the client. So they may need to go develop that expertise too. But in a lot of cases, I find that people already have expertise in a particular outcome and they just don't see it. And they need a third party to kind of bring that out of them and help them articulate what their amazing outcome actually is. And that's the work I really love doing with people, is helping them discover that power that's already within them.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So now you introduce yourself as a business coach. What is your actual target ideal client that you like to?
Yeah. So my ideal client is somebody who provides transformational services, which coaches certainly fall under that label. There are others who don't necessarily call themselves coaches, but they may be some kind of expert, mentor, healer, someone who provides transformational services. And my ideal client is someone who's really been at this, really been trying to make it work, and they're really just not being able to crack like $1,000 to $3,000 a month because their services are so low priced, and they're struggling to convey the value and get enough people interested, because that's kind of the perfect storm for me, because messaging and the process that I use with people kind of fixes all those things. It allows them to raise their price. It allows them to enroll clients more quickly and not have a super lengthy sales process. And allows them to supercharge their lead gen because they're more confident about what they do and they know exactly who they're going for. So my target is somebody who's making a little bit of money and really is hungry for more, and I can come in and take them to that $10,000 or $20,000 a month level.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So now let me just ask this, because you said you've had so much trial and error and programs and everything that you've gone through. It's a process, especially if you're taking yourself on this journey and you don't have somebody like yourself to show you, no, take this step and take this step and lay it out for you. Do you have a coach that you work with? Do you have somebody that you get mentorship from?
So I've had a variety of coaches along my journey. And actually, at the moment, I don't have one, but I know that I will have one in the future. It's something that I'm always going to return to at different points in my journey when I feel it's time for an up level. I've worked with a ton of them, and it's it's the kind of thing where you can never see your own blind spots, no matter how great your process is. Even if you're a business coach yourself, I believe we all need that at certain key moments in our journey. So for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was just kind of curious. All right, let me jump into a couple things here about your actual business and your process. I think it's a fantastic model, and I think it's certainly providing a ton of value to people who are coming out to you. What would you say in building this up? What is something that kind of triggered that made you realize that, aha, I finally know exactly, now this is what I'm going to focus on. This is exactly what the niche is I'm going to do. I've been doing, these steps, and you finally have your process in place. When did you feel like you finally, arrived? Was it the dollar amount? Was it the the client's success? Was it, or are you still kind of on that journey, I guess?
Gosh, it's funny because I've had a lot of really cool milestones like that, like first multiple four-figure client, first five-figure month, first five-figure client. Though, like all of those were super cool milestones for sure. Um, and it's funny because maybe we're all a little bit too hard on ourselves because I personally have never felt like, oh, I've arrived now.
Right, right.
It's like we're always on a journey. But I think I think for me, like the combination of seeing client success and being able to charge a higher price myself was like a super cool moment. That was like, and those two things tend to go together. Like when you see people get incredible results from what you do, then there's this building up that happens inside of you where you're like, it's so valuable, even more than I thought. And now I feel so empowered. The price has to go up. And then when you do raise that price and you do get that first person saying yes, then that's when you really feel like you've made it. If you can get one client paying you $5,000 or $10,000, then you can get more of them, right?
Right.
And you're like, wow, this is a real thing. This is my thing. I'm never going to need a job again. I can always create my own income. But for me, like seeing client results is the most tremendous thing. Like I was able to, like, because I use a process where people actually are empowered to realize their own value. And a lot of times they end up doubling their price, tripling their price, sometimes multiplying their price by 10.
Right.
and I see them actually receive those prices for the first time. It was so cool. I remember there was one client who actually, just by posting a simple message in a Facebook group that he had started, I think it was his own group, I don't even remember now, but it was so cool that he realized he could just post a message in there about being an expert on a certain outcome, and that people would get on calls with him, and he had just tripled his price. And he ended up selling, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 of this package in a few days time. So it was like a crazy amount of money, like more than he'd ever seen at one time before. And he totally deserved it. He was, an expert in his field, but he had never fully owned that enough to see what he should really be charging. And those moments are just like so exciting for me. I live for those moments.
I'm so glad you shared that. That's awesome. I know there are so many people listening right now who are thinking, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine charging 10,000 or 20,000 or even 3 or 5,000, for a service. There's this roadblock in their head, right? That's telling them,
Yep.
Stopping them. So how do you speak to that? How do you take somebody to get them started on that process to think, yes, you are worth it. If you can solve this and there's enough pain that, you tell them and they cognitively, they get it, but there's a huge bridge to cross. How do you start that path? How do you start that journey for somebody?
Yeah. So the process I use is really, really simple, actually. It's like claiming this value is really just a few simple shifts away for most people. The first step is really defining the outcome and claiming it, really owning it. Like, what is the biggest result that you can actually partner with a client to help them get? And business coaches, I find, struggle with this a lot because they're reluctant to actually say they help coaches or help whoever make more money. They don't all help coaches, but people are reluctant to own that. They'd rather say, oh, I help with clarity, or I help with messaging, or whatever, or the aspects of helping someone make money. But usually it's about seeing who you're best placed to help. And a lot of people don't see that. It's not about being all things to all people. It's about finding the circumstances under which you could, as a business coach, help someone make more money. That's your zone. So it's not you can help everyone make more money, but there's a certain type of client and a certain type of circumstance that you could confidently say, yeah, I could help them make more money. I could even say about how much more it would be. To take it out of the business coach realm, I've had some folks in the career coaching space who have really struggled to own their outcome because they're like, well, I don't know if I can say that I can help folks get a job, for example.
Right.
I'm not sure that I could, own that. I don't know if all my clients, I've had a variety of clients, they haven't all gotten jobs after working with me, so I'm struggling to own that as my outcome. But what we find is a lot of their past clients weren't ideal for whatever reason, and we dig into why that was, and we find that there's a particular type of client that they would feel confident saying, yeah, if the conditions were right, I could help them, that type of client, to get a job. So it's like once they dial into what that perfect storm is for them, the client, the circumstances, then suddenly they're like, yeah, I could own that as my outcome. And that's a super cool moment, because that, for me, it's like 90% of the work is done when you've actually named your outcome and you've owned it. So much of the problems with client attraction and sales are taken care of at that point. And so from that point, I take people through an exercise where it's like, okay, what is this problem costing your ideal clients? Like, really, just how bad is their life because they don't have this outcome? What are they missing out on? And from that point, as you start to explain and enumerate all the costs of living with this problem, both, financial and otherwise, it's usually no sweat for somebody to triple or 10x their price, because they see that that's still a bargain compared to, this awful
Right.
life that this person is living.
That's a powerful, powerful question. And it changes your whole mindset all of a sudden, because you're looking at potential lost value, right? I mean, how much I'm losing by not taking action now. And it's a great way to get somebody to realize how much they're actually worth and what their service is actually providing. So that's
Yep.
beautiful. Do you have a favorite, like a client success story, somebody who you just thought like, man, this is going to be a lot tougher than it is, and all of a sudden it like blew up and it was awesome? Do you have any of those? Or
Oh yeah, actually, so I haven't gotten permission to share this, so I want to talk about it in a way that doesn't
sure,
identify the
yeah,
person, but
absolutely.
but
Change the
this
name,
is,
change the job, change whatever you want.
yeah. So
Keep
I
it
got to
simple.
think for a second, because this is something that was super, super exciting for me. So this was somebody who was a life coach and had only charged, I think, she had gotten up to charging like maybe 2,000 to 3,000, and was really struggling with the $3,000 price point.
Now, can I stop you and ask you, for $2,000 to $3,000, what does that mean? Is that a one-time charge? Is that a monthly charge? Is that for a program? What?
Oh, sure, sure. So I should explain that. Yeah. So a huge piece of this is what I help folks to do is to create outcome-driven offers. So it's a program that's very short, usually about 2 to 3 months, where it's really aimed at getting the client a specific outcome, and then there's a one-time charge for that.
Got it.
So this client had come to me and she was already doing that model. It was really an interesting challenge for me, because she had a lot of things in place that are already like what I teach, but it wasn't working that well. she had just had a really, really tough time enrolling people, even for, I think, that $2,000 price point. And so what we had to work on was like, why is that happening? Why are you struggling to get 2,000? And I think client results were all over the place. That's typically what happens as well when folks come to me. It's like some of their clients are getting results and some aren't, and they're getting mentally tripped up over that and doubting themselves. And with this person, this was a real challenge, because she already had her outcome like pretty well defined, but and it took longer than it usually does. Normally I'm able to help folks dial that in pretty quickly, but this took like a couple weeks for us to, meet and hash it out. And I realized there was an angle that I hadn't seen for her ideal client, again, where she could help that person get results better than other types of people. And from that point, she was like instantly empowered, raised her price to 5 or 6,000, I think. Got the first sale almost immediately. And, every client now, she knows how to identify, attract, and pick the ones who are in her zone. And she feels confident charging that higher price. So that was one of the coolest things for me, because it was a challenge to identify that person's outcome. But once we got it, it was like, ta-da!
Yeah, no kidding. And that is life changing for somebody. I mean, absolutely. Yep. Changes the world, because you're right. There's not a whole lot of places in the world where you can, especially a 9 to 5, where you can just go and be working and suddenly give yourself a 3x or 4x pay raise, and just
yeah,
good. So
exactly.
That is awesome. So then on the flip side, has there ever been anybody you've worked with who I don't want to say had to fire, but had to be like, look, this isn't flying. This isn't working. I'm giving you everything I can, and they're just not going through with it. What's that ever happened to you? Anything like that?
So I love that question, actually. So once I got to the level of charging 5,000 and above, that has never happened. And when I got to charging 10,000 and above, definitely never happened. And I think that's something about the perfect storm of knowing exactly who you're best placed to help and fully owning the value of it, and having them pay a price that's sufficiently high to kind of scare them a little bit.
Yeah.
Once all those things are in place, I've never had a problem with clients paying at that level, not doing the work. They all show up like with a fire under them, basically. Now, at lower price points, or when I was trying to do all that nonsense that I tell people not to do, like offer one-time sessions or offer, a 3-session package or whatever, I wouldn't say, no, I never fired anybody from those, but I found that, they did not implement a lot of times after the one-time session or the 2-time session or whatever it was that we did. I'd follow up and be like, hey, how's it going? They'd be like, well, I haven't done anything really with the work that we did. And I'd be like, why? And of course, now it's like the most obvious thing in the world. They weren't that invested to begin with in getting any outcomes. So that's always a red flag for me if someone's like, oh, my client's not showing up to calls, or my client's not doing the work or whatever. I'm like, what's your price? Exactly. That's what I want to know, because I've never had a problem with a client not showing up to calls. Like, I'm sometimes late. I was late the other day to a call because of a personal thing, and they were all like on the call waiting for me because they're eager, right? Yeah. They're fully invested in the process.
Awesome. So this is awesome. I don't want to take a whole lot more of your time. Our time's almost up, but I do want to make sure that if anybody listening wants to reach out to you, I think they would absolutely benefit. I think it'd be crazy for somebody, especially who is interested in really blowing their business up, to not at least figure out how to reach out to you and figure out if you're a good fit. What's the best way to do that?
Sure. So I have a super simple process for doing that. If folks want to go to eleanorstrong.com, and my name's a little bit unusually spelled, so if you have show notes or something, maybe you can
I will
put it in there. But my name is Eleanore. That's my first name, and then Strong is my last name, just like the word. But if folks go there, we have a free masterclass on how it's basically our process for making 10 to 20,000 a month as a coach without paid advertising, without websites, without funnels, and without any other kind of complexity. That's our outcome. So there's a free presentation there that folks can watch to get the entire overview of how we do this. And then that presentation explains, if folks want to take the next step and talk about working together, it explains how to do that.
Awesome. That is incredibly, that's just awesome. I think everybody would just at least take a look and watch and have a conversation with you. So is
Yeah.
there anything, as I'm going to love to leave this open for you, is there anything that I did not ask you that you maybe wish I had asked, or something you want to leave to end this little interview off with?
Gosh, you know, I could talk for hours about this stuff, but
It's
I
fun.
would, it's really fun. I think I would say like my hugest takeaway from this whole journey has been that understanding and owning the outcome you can create for clients is where your power truly lies. So it can really, I want to offer that to people who are listening who might be struggling really hard right now and it seems like nothing's working, right? Like you can't get enough calls booked, discovery calls booked, you can't, your clients' results are all over the place. You know, you're getting objections to your price when you do get folks on calls. You feel like you're not reaching enough leads. Like there's so many things it can feel like they're going wrong, right? And you can feel like it's never going to get worked out or figured out. And I just want to tell people and give them hope that once you dial into that zone of power, that outcome you can deliver for the right person, again, not trying to be all things to all people, once you figure out where your power lies, 90% of all those issues like instantly resolve themselves. And so, if I have to give a 1 minute response to tie things up, that's what I would say. That's what most people are missing. And if they can really get that figured out, their success is so much closer than they think it is.
Eleanor, it has been a true privilege and pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast and sharing your stories with us and sharing a lot of great content with us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Wow, that was awesome. Thank you so much for tuning in and checking us out. New episodes are coming out every few days, including lots of conversations with massively successful coaches sharing their secrets with you. So be sure to subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel so that you don't miss out. And if you're looking for a way to start making serious money from your coaching, you need to check out my free training. It's at williamwinterton.com. I lay out the step-by-step on how to start making 5 figures a month in the next 60 days. Check it out, williamwinterton.com. I'll see you next time.